All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another Community Team Live Q&A. I'm Balloons, and Popey is here with me, and we're going to be answering all of your questions live. Anything you've got, throw it at us. We can talk about it. Happy to talk about it. Answer your questions, all that good stuff. Um, let's think. Popey and I wanted to mention a couple interesting events going on this weekend. First of which is the Ubuntu Global Jam. So maybe you've heard about it. Once a cycle, every cycle, we have and encourage local teams and anybody else who is a Ubuntu contributor interested in Ubuntu, wants to help advocate Ubuntu, whatever it is. We invite them to all get together at the same time. Obviously, we can't all meet in one place, but we can meet locally together in bunches and work on stuff. Do anything that we wish. So you can contribute to the project via documentation, testing. You can do some development work. You can do bug triage, whatever it is. Install fests, whatever. This weekend is sort of the universal time to go ahead and do that, and then we invite you to share your experiences and talk about what you do with everybody, and yeah, just sort of have a really cool event. So, Popey, I don't know if you want
to. Yeah, I was going to say
all
of that. Yeah, so we've got a wiki page that I posted in the chat. It's fairly easy if you just Google for Ubuntu Global Jam. It's on between the 12th and the 14th of September, so that's this weekend. And as Nick said, it's all around the world. You can set up a Global Jam anywhere. You don't have to be a developer. You don't have to be an Ubuntu member. You don't have to be accredited in any way in order to run a Global Jam. You can run them anywhere. You can even run them another time. You don't necessarily have to run them this weekend. We have put a suggested date of 12th to the 14th to kind of get everyone together at a similar kind of time. And it's also a good point in the development cycle for us to do this kind of stuff, to do the final bug fixing and polish before the release in late October of 14.10 Utopic Unicorn. But you can run a Global Jam anytime you like. You can run an event to work on Ubuntu anywhere and anytime you like. And in terms of locations, you could, for example, do something really massive, and if you're expecting lots of people, and hire out a location and go full bore at this kind of thing, or you can do it small scale and anywhere in between. So you could have a few friends round to your house, or maybe meet up at a coffee shop. Anything at all, whatever's the most appropriate venue. We've talked about this before, that different countries, different locations have different cultures, and some people find the coffee shop is a good place to go. Others, the coffee shop might want you to spend a load of money, or might want you to hire a room or something like that. So really, we don't really set the rules for where you meet up for a Global Jam. That's whatever's appropriate for you, and getting together in at a house or a flat, and or a coffee shop, or hiring a venue if you've got someone who's willing to sponsor that would be great. But the key thing is to do things to make Ubuntu better, and that's often doing something that will scratch your own itch. So you might be in a country where the translations, for example, of Ubuntu are not 100% translated, in which case that would be a great thing to do to scratch your own itch, to make sure that your own Ubuntu desktop is fully translated. And having a few people sat around a table translating the desktop applications and also the phone and the phone applications would be an awesome way to contribute to Ubuntu and have personal impact on you and your friends in whatever country you live in. If you have the ability, if you've got some computing facilities, maybe a PC, a couple of laptops or something like that, you could do some testing. Grab an ISO image, stick it on a USB key or in a CD, and boot from it and go through some of the ISO testing that the QA team like to do. They really love doing that. and that could be as simple as booting it up, going through the installer, looking for any issues, making sure things like it chooses the right time zone, making sure it installs correctly, does the right partitioning layout, all the kind of basic things you would expect the installer to do. And then once the install's done, report back on whether it was successful, what type of machine it was, if there were any problems, report bugs, and also talk to people in the QA team. We have IRC channels where you can get in contact with the QA team. So it may well be that you discover a bug that is already known about, and it could be that you just need to +1 that bug, or maybe you have some additional evidence that could help a developer to fix that bug. And all of that kind of stuff is really super useful, and it's not totally onerous to do that. Many people have a laptop that they could use for this kind of thing. With some people, you don't want to use your main laptop, so maybe you could swap out the hard drive, put an old hard drive in your laptop, and do the installs on that, so you don't damage your own installation, that kind of stuff. So there's ways that you could be kind of inventive in order to contribute without causing too much headaches for yourself. Other things you could do include improving documentation. So the wiki, and there is some community documentation that always needs updating. It's one of those things that open source projects are renowned for, is not having the most spectacular up-to-date documentation, especially when things are moving target in the open source world. So that's a great way to contribute. And you can also, if you're in a country where English is not the first language, creating localized documentation is also valuable to both yourself and your fellow countrymen. What else? Well, there's the obvious, filing bugs when you find them, triaging existing bugs, adding additional data to bugs, that kind of stuff. Anything else have I missed? Another thing that's worth noting is it's good to keep a record of what you do. So whatever it is you do, whether it's bug fixing, ISO testing, documentation, it's good to keep a record of what you've done, so that at the end of the Global Jam, you've got like this body of work, and you can say, we got together and we're part of this particular team, whether you're part of a loco team or not. You could document what you've done and say, here are the achievements that we've had, and that's really valuable for other people as well, because it's great for us to be able to see the achievements that people have done, and the progression that people have made. There are often people who turn up to a Global Jam who are a user of Ubuntu and maybe don't know how to go about filing a bug, or don't know where to edit the documentation, or how to do translation. And so it's great to see over a period of a Global Jam that people have picked up additional knowledge and contributed. And that's really rewarding for not only us in the Ubuntu project, but also other people in other locations who are also doing Global Jam. Well, this is a valuable thing. I pick up useful skills, and I can contribute to an open source project, and that's great and rewarding, and it's just generally a good idea to document what you're doing. You can have a little competitive edge as well, to maybe track how many bugs that your team triaged compared to how many bugs another team somewhere else triaged. Get a little bit of kudos out of you beating the other guys, that kind of thing. One thing to note, that on the wiki we've detailed what you could do at a Global Jam. We've got an FAQ with all the typical questions about the Global Jam, and what we have actually done is put a date of Friday 12th of September until Sunday the 14th. But that's not to say you have to lock everyone in a room for 2.5 days and all work on this. That's just a guideline. It could be that you get together on a Friday evening, socially, sit around in a bar, get your laptops out and do a bit of stuff, or it could be that, Saturday's a better day for you, and so you might spend all day Saturday working on it, or, you might spend a bit of Saturday and then find that you didn't finish off all the things you wanted to do, so you get back together again on Sunday. It's, completely flexible. You use the time as you want. It's not, we're not expecting people to clock in on a Friday and then clock out on a Sunday and expect, 48 hours worth of solid work to be done. That's not the way it works. Primarily, the whole point of this is that it should be fun. I mean, to make Ubuntu better and for it to be fun. And yeah, I think that's all I had to say, I think. I missed anything, Nick?
No, that's good. I would just reiterate what you said about not worrying about having it be a big production. I think Michael shared the story, so I know personally I met at someone's house with, I think, the total of 4 of us. Even 2 people getting together totally works out. Sometimes those are the most productive sessions that you can have, that very small, dedicated group of people doing something. And the other thing I would reiterate is just making sure you share. Everybody loves seeing those sorts of updates come across about other people doing things. So be one of those people who shares what they've done, and that'll encourage others to share as well. And that way you can sort of relive all those moments across the world of other people doing cool and interesting things.
That's a good point about sharing your stuff. It's possible that for some people you just can't get together in the same place. Maybe some countries, there's you on one side of the country, there's another contributor on another side of the country, or on opposite sides of a state or county, and logistically sometimes it's difficult to get together. There may be cost prohibitive, or just it might take 2 hours to drive across the county or something. In which case, you can use tools like this, like Hangouts or Skype or Mumble or something like that, to chat online and virtual place, and use tools like IRC to chat to each other. Use Etherpad. We've got an Ubuntu Etherpad, pad.ubuntu.com, where you can keep your notes and track who's doing what, so you don't duplicate work, that kind of stuff. So you don't have to be in the same room. It does work when you're spread out as well. I mean, it's good fun being in the same place, especially sharing a cup of tea, sharing a pizza or a beer, if that's what you want to do while you're working. Then that's all good fun as well. But yeah, it works remotely just as well.
For sure. So one other quick thing I wanted to share before we dove into the questions, I wanted to talk about a related event that's going on this weekend. So you may have heard in the past of UbiCons. They've had UbiCons, I believe, just recently in Latin America. There was one in Colombia as well. California, they'll typically have one before Scale. There's been some in Europe. And the idea behind a UbiCon is sort of similar to the Global Jam, but it's sort of on a bigger scale. And of course, it can happen anytime. It's sort of like a little miniature UDS, perhaps, of what used to happen. So it's still an informal gathering of Ubuntu folks in a sort of like conference-like setting. And so, as you may or may not know, there's a free open source software conference going on in Florida, so that's local for me. This weekend, and so the precursor to that, the day before, we'll be having a UbiCon. I guess you can call it UbiCon Florida, sure. And so that'll be actually happening this Thursday, and that's in Orlando. So if anyone wants to come out, please feel free to do so. I will paste the link in IRC here for the different sessions. But I'll be giving a session along with Liz Crumbaugh on giving back to Ubuntu, your first steps towards contribution, talking about the different ways that you can get involved. Michael Hall is going to be talking about how to create a Ubuntu SDK application, so talking about the SDK, talking about how to create an app using it, and get you started on some application development. And then there's a few other things talking about Ubuntu for beginners, sort of going over the basics of Ubuntu and helping you get started on your Ubuntu journey. And then we have a session on Ubuntu Server as well, talking, again, I think the server one will actually be a deeper dive, so it'll be talking a bit more about some more deeper more interesting things of Ubuntu server. And then finally, to wrap things up, we'll have a Q&A where it'll just be a live session where people can ask anything they wish, and I think pretty much all the speakers and presenters from that day will be there answering any questions that you might have. I'm sure Mike and I will both have some Ubuntu Phablet devices for you to take a look at if you haven't seen those. So it should be a good time. I'm looking forward to seeing some folks that we haven't seen in a long time. So if you're local or can otherwise participate, please feel free to come on out. And that'll be, like I said, this Thursday, right before the FaucetCon actual conference. Okay. Cool. With that, shall we have out the questions? What do you think, Alan?
Yeah. So, have we got any questions in there? So, if you have any questions, join the IRC channel, which is Ubuntu-on-air on Freenode, and prefix your question with the word question is how we'll spot them, because we both have that highlighted in IRC. So the first question is from Akiva ThinkPad, who says, what is the Ubuntu Developer Desktop I keep hearing about? Is it an ISO or a package full of developer tools? Is it ready yet? So this is something that Didier Roche has been working on, and it's a tool. So you're expected to already have Ubuntu installed. If it's targeting developers of initially Android applications, but it could be developers of other types of applications later on. This is just the first iteration. So let's suppose that you've purchased a laptop with Ubuntu on it, or you've installed Ubuntu on your machine. You install this tool, and when you run it, you can specify what type of developer you are. So you run the tool and tell it you're an Android developer, and it presents the standard Android license agreement for the Android tools, the Android developer tools. And then it goes off and downloads them and installs them, and whatever dependencies are required. And the idea behind it is to make it as friction-free as possible for you to install the necessary developer tools that you might want to install on Ubuntu desktop. And typically, for an Android developer, that would be Android Studio, or previously that would be Eclipse, but now it's Android Studio. And it's trying to make it easier, so you don't have to go and hunt for a dev file on some random website, or have to read loads of documentation to get yourself up and running. The idea is you install Ubuntu, you install this tool, you run it, bam, it installs everything necessary. And one of the problems we found is that the development and they change, and the idea is that we track those so that in the event that the developer tools get updated, or any of the dependencies change, or anything like that, then the tool can be used to install the latest version. We track that, and yeah, that's basically what it's for. And yes, it's ready. It works.
Awesome. Yeah, Popey, your voice is sort of really crackly for me. Seems I'm not the only one. IRC seems to agree. Sorry. So just to follow up on what you're saying, Popey, I pasted the link to Didier's post for Ubuntu Less Developers, so you can find out some more information there as well, just in case you're curious. While Popey tries to fix his mic.
So is it any better now? Is that the same?
I think that's the same, yeah.
I don't know why that is.
Well, so we had a couple folks who mentioned wanting some different hardware support. Someone's asking about Lenovo TrackPoint stuff, and someone else is also talking about and support for Wi-Fi chips. So to answer both of your questions in one fell swoop, generally, if you're having specific support issues, ask Ubuntu or the forums, or even since you're on IRC, if you want to join hash Ubuntu. That's a great place to sort of get support. Sadly, we're not really set up here to troubleshoot your PC installations. Apologize. Sadly, I'm not sitting next to you. Otherwise, I might be of more use to you. And so, asking for support generally, if there is support elsewhere, or for instance, if Upstream supports it, for instance, if the kernel, newer version of the kernel supports your hardware, or you find an updated version of the package in question, whatever it is, typically that can be structured as a bug report requesting someone to help update that package. And I know the kernel team is always happy to help support additional hardware, especially if the support exists already upstream. They can just patch, test, and add to the existing kernel. So yeah, I hope that helps answer any of those hardware and support questions that you guys have. So what's next?
So is this any better, or is it still rubbish?
Let us see. Oh, that's good, Bobby. Yeah, sounds fine to me. Yes. Okay. So the next question, Simone asks, is there a web page with a list of all Ubuntu phone apps?
Answer no. I'm getting some echo from you now, Nick. So we don't have a web-based yet. There are. I know some people have created scripts that will poke the store API, because there is an API, web API, for querying what's available in the store. And I know there's at least one Python script available on GitHub that you can run, and it will present a web-based front end that shows you all of the apps in the store. But we don't currently have a web store.
Yep, I think that's sufficient. Not yet, but we will. Let's see. The next question, I think, is asking. I have Potato asks, when can we install touch apps on the desktop from the Software Center? That's sort of a related question.
I don't think we're going to. Sorry, I'm getting echo from you. I don't think I don't think we're going to have the Click apps in the Ubuntu Software Center. So the goal is that by 16.04 we'll have the fully converged desktop. So touch apps, or the Click apps that are currently on the phone, would be installable on the desktop. But I don't believe that there's any plan to put those apps into the Ubuntu Software Center that we currently have, because the Ubuntu Software Center and the Unity 7 based desktop that you know and love from 14.04 and 14.10 is based around Debian packages and not Click packages. Click packages are designed for Unity 8, where we have siloed applications, and that's not the way apps are installed on the 14.04 and 14.10 desktop. But that should come in sometime between now and 16.04.
Right. And so I would say, just to add on that, if you wanted to run a specific touch app on your desktop, in theory it's not impossible, and I imagine that will get easier as time goes on, especially as we already have a Unity 8 sort of preview ISO sitting out there, and as those types of efforts carry on, I imagine it will be easier to get a sneak preview of a preview of coming attractions, if you will. So yeah. Let's see what the next question is. I think the next question is from Akiva again, and he asks, will the Ubuntu terminal app plan to use Ubuntu Mono? Oh, that's a good question. And Poppy, you might know the answer to that. I know you've been working with the terminal developers on bringing some new goodies to the terminal app. Maybe you can even talk about those as well.
Yeah, so at the moment the terminal app does use the Mono font. the Ubuntu Mono font. It's possible we may switch to a different font, or we may ship multiple fonts and let you pick whichever one, because one of those terminal fonts is one of those opinionated choices that people have. People are very keen on one particular font, and they won't accept any other substitute. So, I appreciate that. We wanted to get the basic functionality of the terminal done, and we have a visual identity with the Ubuntu font. It's used throughout the whole of the phone, but it's not unreasonable for us to allow that to be customized, especially when Ubuntu Touch runs on multiple. I'm looking around my desk at multiple different devices running Ubuntu Touch, and they have different screen sizes and different dot pitch, and people have certain favorites. So yeah, patch is welcome for implementing different fonts, and if you have certain favorite monospace fonts that you think would be good for inclusion in the terminal app, then by all means let me know. I'm aware of a few that I know people like. It's a good idea. Firebug, patch is welcome, all the usual standard answers. And
then trying to see if I can. Sorry, go ahead, Pope.
Okay, so the next question is from some random guy called Jono. Don't know who he is, and it says, "What's the current state of RTM? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" Smiley face. So for those who don't know, we've talked about RTM a little bit in the past, but for those who haven't heard, RTM is the release to manufacture. That's the image that we give to the handset manufacturer that they take to their factory, and when they're building their phones, they put the software in the phones. And we've started building RTM images. So if you have something like a Nexus 4, we have RTM images. It's not a final RTM image. It's not the final one that will be shipping on the phone, because there's still bugs, there's still polish work to do, which we're still working on. And when it's done, it's done. We don't have a date, but I'm sure that will be soon. So no, we're not there yet, Jono, but we will be there soon. So next question we have from someone from Oslo. No, from Slow. I think that's truncated, so we could just guess where someone from is from. Slovakia, maybe? Slovenia, perhaps? But their question is, when can we expect Unity 8 and some sort of Wayland for the end users in Ubuntu? So Unity 8, there is as Nick mentioned, there is an ISO image you can grab, which has a preview, if you like, version of Unity 8. So far we're working heavily on Unity 8 for phones and tablets, but you can run it on the desktop. And we have a pure Unity 8 ISO image that the desktop team created, and that contains Unity 8, Mia, and some Unity 8 apps that you would see are familiar from the phone. So things like the music app, the clock, calendar, and so on are on that ISO. It's not finished yet. It's a preview, and as I mentioned earlier, as we get closer to 1604, which the keen-eyed amongst you will notice is in 1.5 years. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Time's flying. 1604, April 2016. Sometime before then, we'll have a solid, stable ISO that you can use.
Yes, and I actually provided a link there to the wiki page where you can find out more information, and it links you to CD image where you can grab that image. And there is one important thing to note on, well, there's a few important things to note on the image, but the big one is that it does not really work in VMs. I think maybe someone has gotten it to work,
I
an
think it
Intel
works in
drivers, that
one.
sort of thing.
I think it works in
Yeah,
VMware, but it doesn't work in VirtualBox or QEMU, as far as I understand it.
right. I think so, right. But I think it's only in VMware with maybe with either an Intel or a Nouveau driver. I don't know, whatever. Your best bet to keep it simpler is to just boot it because it's a live CD, so it's not going to harm your system at all. Just boot it on your actual hardware, and that'll give you probably a better and easier experience than trying to run it in a VM. Although you're welcome to do so. Just don't be surprised if no live session comes up. You might just boot to a console. If that's the case, you'll know that something broke and the virtual machine you're using is probably not supported. The other cool thing is that Popey didn't mention is that I think the scopes are probably the most interesting thing on the ISO. So do check those out if you do boot it up. Okay.
Oh, apparently I was right. It was Slovenia. So
yes, and you were right. I thought that was brilliant. Out of SLO, you got Slovenia. Wow.
I didn't actually get a very good grade for geography at school either. So yeah, that's not bad. We've got a question from Akiva ThinkPad. Will phone hardware likely reach a point where it's similar to x86 hardware, where installing an operating system like Ubuntu Touch on phone will be as easy as installing Ubuntu Desktop on a desktop? So I think the premise of this question is around the fact that when you download an ISO for Ubuntu that works on Intel or AMD chip, x86 based chips, whether it's 32-bit or 64-bit, you basically never really worry about what manufacturer made the laptop or the desktop. You grab the ISO, you put it on a stick, and we are, familiar for many years of installing on Intel-based machines where you put the USB stick in or the CD in the drive, boot off it, and the Linux kernel does all the magical auto detection of what hardware you have, and Xorg configures itself in magical ways. So it's pretty seamless, and you get the same user experience across different hardware. The ARM world is slightly different in that they don't have some of the things that the Intel world has, things like ACPI and device enumeration and things like that we've become accustomed to in the Intel world. So with ARM devices, we have to create a kernel specifically for that device that has the drivers that service the hardware in that device. And two different devices. If you compare, for example, two devices from that are not far away from each other, like that's a Nexus 7 2012, that's a Nexus 7 2013. They have sufficiently different hardware inside them that a kernel that boots on this one won't boot on this one, and vice versa. So the hardware is different enough that some work needs to be done to enable those devices, and that's one of the reasons why we have a limited set of devices that we support on with Ubuntu Touch right now. In the future, if the ARM architecture gets things like ACPI, then that would make life a whole lot easier. But right now, that's not the world we live in. The world we live in at the moment is ARM devices. You need to create custom kernels for them. That's just where we are, and that's the same with Cyanogen Mod or Android or other operating systems on ARM as well. You can't just grab an ISO and install it on any ARM device, unfortunately. However, that said, we have separated out the kernel stuff from the user space. So, for example, with Ubuntu Touch, there are sufficiently brainy people out there who can port the kernel across to these other phones, these new devices that come down the pipe, and they feel sufficiently motivated to port to those devices and do all the kernel hardware bring up, and we provide the user space, the bit that sits on top of that. And that user space is exactly the same. It's the same Unity 8, it's the same Click apps, and all of that from the drivers upwards is the same. But someone has to do that porting work. Man, I ramble on a lot, don't I?
That's right. I was just going to say, though, to me, the bigger piece is the excitement around the fact that we don't have to install Ubuntu. I can buy a device and have Ubuntu on it. And I think that's probably the more utopic vision for me, is to have it run Ubuntu, and not have to go through the tricks and that sort of thing to load Ubuntu on it.
We're in a weird state. It's always been the case that Linux is in a weird place because if you can go to a shop and buy a machine that has Windows on it, you could buy a machine that has OS 10 on it. You can buy machines that have Android, Windows Phone, iOS, BlackBerry, or all these operating systems. There are devices that come with the OS baked in, and there are fewer devices that are available with Ubuntu baked in. And we're aiming to fix that.
For sure. Right. Not that I don't love to tinker with things, but
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking of all the crazy stuff I've installed Linux on. I'm sure everyone has stories. All right. Some random name asks, harkens back to the Unity 8 desktop image that we were just talking about, and mentions that last he heard that it couldn't be used in VMs, and he was wondering if it was going to be fixed soon. And he says, I'd love to know if I could use the VM for web browsing since I could roll it back after browsing. It's interesting that you want it for web browsing. But like we said, I believe basically the issue there is that it requires 3D acceleration. So if you use, as Poppy suggested, VMware, and you have the 3D acceleration enabled, I think that you might find some success. VirtualBox might have similar...
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
I don't know. It's VirtualBox. I know it doesn't work. I'm just saying, maybe you could make it work if you could get 3D acceleration of some sort, or they added 3D acceleration, whatever it is. I think that's the key piece that's missing. That's the point for a virtual machine.
I think it's Mir actually that needs the work. I don't think it's a thing in the VM. I think it's Mir.
Oh, okay. The work. Well, in that case. You can point fingers at us.
Well, yeah, Mir is indeed open source. Batch is welcome, as always.
Sure. Batch is welcome. Right. So I don't know of any specific timeline to fix that. Really, the focus is more on actual hardware. Although I imagine that VM support can't be too far off, because I think it would be handy from a testing perspective for some of the testing those guys do. But I know for now we're using real hardware for all the Mir testing, and I suspect that will continue for some time. So.
Next question is from Akiva. Asks, has there been any design decisions for tablet mode yet? So we're focused on the phone at the moment, and we have to deliver the phone images for the upcoming devices that we've announced from BQ and Meizu. So we're pretty much 100% focused on that. I know the design team have been looking at tablet UI, but right now we're totally focused on phone. Tablet will come after. Yes, we are looking at it, but it's not the primary focus by some stretch. I think probably next year is probably when we'd start thinking about tablet in great detail. I don't think that's going to come this year. That's my personal opinion. Okay, I have Potato question. What's the minimal hardware requirement for Ubuntu phone? That's a good question. I don't actually know. I don't know what I know over the years that we've been doing this, we've run various code bases on a number of different devices, starting off with transformer, Asus transformers, Nokia N9s, Motorola, various Motorola phones, various Samsung and Nexus devices. So we've run different code on all of them. So it's not been the same code base over the last 2 years that's run on all of those devices. So the code has changed so much over that time. It's very difficult for me to say, what the minimum requirements are. I just don't know, is the short answer.
Right. I was I was skipping ahead on a question, and just Caracas asked when will there be a new development image. So I was getting a kick out of it, saying I was going to look into my crystal ball and divine when the next image will come out.
So for those who don't know, that whole process, we have a number of channels, and the channels have interesting names. Like there's one called Stable, one called Devel, and one called Devel Proposed, and there's a whole bunch of others as well. Some of them are aliases to each other, but the general gist of it is Stable is the image that we pushed out when 14.04 was released. So if you were to install from the Stable channel, you'll get a very old image on your phone. If you want to see what Ubuntu looked like 4 months ago and compare it to what it looks like now, use the Stable channel. I wouldn't actually use that on a daily basis because it's, things have moved on dramatically since then. There's so much you won't have in there. The next one is Devel, and Devel is the one that we would recommend people use. It's more stable than Stable. Well, no, it's newer than Stable, but it's not as stable as Stable. Proposed is the image that we build every day. So we build an image sometimes twice a day, sometimes more frequently, and it goes through a whole bunch of automated testing, QA, and manual testing. And once it's been signed off, the proposed image gets promoted to become the Devel image. So if you're running on the Devel channel, you don't see a new image very often. If you're running the Devel Proposed channel, you'll get a new image every day. Like I wake up and every morning there's a new image for my phone, and I over-the-air update my phone, and it's great. I get new stuff, but I get new stuff before it's been tested and QA'd, so it's sometimes broken. And so those are the images that we don't promote, the ones that are broken, and we don't recommend people use that channel. That's usually used for our internal developers. And once those are QA'd, then you get a promoted image, and that goes to the Devel channel. And in the IRC channel, there's Mike Hall, who's complaining bitterly that his phone hasn't seen an update recently because he sits on the Devel channel, which is understandable. If you only have one device, you don't want your one device to be broken one morning. So that's the channels that we have.
For sure. To quasi-answer your question, I would say, though, that the release and CI folks make an effort to push something out once a week. That's probably the goal. So the fact that hasn't happened means that they're scrambling and really want to push an image. So they want to push one just as bad as you do. So once everything is QA'd and looks good, we will certainly push a new image. But like Popey, I'm sitting on Devel Proposed all the time, so I guess I'm not suffering in the same way you guys are.
No, we suffer in different ways, like,
Yes.
I was at a wedding at the weekend, and I tried to take a photograph, and my phone blew up. So there's it's a bit like running comparing Debian stable testing and unstable. You can think of them very much like that. Stable testing and unstable, where stable is our stable, testing is our Devel, and unstable is our Devel Proposed.
Right.
We have another question from Jono in there. How can the community help promote the phones when they come out? Good question.
Buy one.
Yeah, well, buy one.
Purchase phone.
That's a great way to help move things forward. Secondly, I would say using it. Don't buy one just to stick it in a drawer and never actually use it. The number of people I've spoken to who've bought other interesting new devices, like Raspberry Pi or whatever, and just buy one thinking it's a good idea and then stick it in a drawer. Buy one, actually use it, and let us know when there are bugs, and maybe if you've got if you're developer inclined, maybe you could try writing apps for it. If you go to developer.ubuntu.com, we've got our SDK there. You could develop apps for it. If you're not a developer, then maybe you could blog about your experience with the Ubuntu phone. Maybe you could share pictures that you take with the Ubuntu phone. Maybe you could share videos that you take with the Ubuntu phone. You know, it's more about using the device and sharing your experience of the device. You know, because we use the device in certain use cases, you know, ourselves, but everyone has a different usage pattern for their mobile devices. You know, some people make loads and loads of phone calls and don't use any of the apps. Other people never make a phone call at all. Some people prefer a SIP client. You know, some people play a lot of games. Others only do social networking. You know, everyone has a different usage, and you know, we would appreciate feedback on, you know, how all this works and whether we're doing the right thing, and you know, if there's any problems or gotchas. You know, we're very open in our development of Ubuntu for phones, and so it's not like we're very unlike the Apple mentality. So you know, there's some upcoming announcement in an hour or two's time that, you know, Apple are going to announce something, and you know, there's rumors and some people have an idea, but the way we do it is the complete opposite. Everything's out on Launchpad. You can see the bug report, warts and all. We post on mailing lists when there are problems. We announce stuff. We discuss it in open IRC channels. So you know, and we would respect the community to, you know, give us their feedback as well in an open, respectful way. So yeah, if you want to get one of these devices, blog about it, tell us how it goes. We value that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think you're right, Popey. Talking about people's usage patterns are so unique, and the way I use my device is totally different from somebody else. So my device can be sort of perfect for my needs and maybe imperfect for yours, or not. You know, maybe there's a piece of functionality that I'm missing that you aren't, etc. So actually using the device is a good point. I know folks, as Popey says, you know, but they're gadget geeks and they have lots of gadgets. But it's what you use that's important. Should we try and sneak in a few more questions here?
Yeah, we've got a few minutes left. What's next?
Andrew actually asked a great question, and he's talking about automated reviews. And so he says, with automated reviews, presumably in the Ubuntu Touch Store, he asks, how will illegal or age-restricted apps be moderated? And how will, as a follow-up, he asks, how will we be able to tell the difference between an official banking app and a third-party one?
Good questions. So
yeah.
So the way the store works, the Click store works at the moment, a developer will use the SDK to create what's called a Click package, and the Click package is very similar to an APK on Android. It's a self-contained application, and they upload that to the store, and it goes through a review process, which at the moment is semi-automatic, in that the store does a load of sanity checking on the package, makes sure it's secure, makes sure there's no dangerous things that it can do or tries to do, and we'll bounce it back to the developer, reject it if it is. I say semi-automatic because at the moment there's a few of us who do a second check and go through all the apps and again check them. We don't do code reviews. We don't spy into the actual code and see what the code actually does. But we do interrogate the application to a fairly great degree. And again, if it's rejected by the tools, it gets bounced back to the developer. What we don't do currently is anything in the way of checking for what Andrew calls illegal or age-restricted apps. We currently don't do that. I know there are discussions on how we might do that, and I suspect that might be a topic for conversation at the next Ubuntu Open Week, Ubuntu Online Summit, sorry. But right now I don't think there's nothing in there that sets like a PEGI rating or anything like that. There's nothing in there that says this app came from this company or that company. You know, you could, and there are apps in there which could be construed as from the wrong person. However, We do have guidelines, and if anyone feels that an application is transgressing any one of those guidelines that Andrew mentioned, they can let us know and we can remove it from the store. And we have already had at least one app removed from the store where it was breaching those guidelines.
Andrew also wanted to know what you were going to do once automated reviews are implemented, Topi.
That's going to happen very soon. Well, you'll see me on more videos like this. That'll be.
That's right. There you go.
Occupy my time staring out the window. Absolutely.
All right. Let's see. Serini asks about how you. Yeah. Serini asks about Ubuntu Touch support for Microsoft documents. I think the quick answer for that is.
The quick answer is.
There is no quick answer. Yeah.
Flurgalurgle.
Flurgalurgle. Yeah. So you have. Obviously, on Ubuntu, you have various options. I don't need to repeat them all. You can use LibreOffice and try and convert to a format that's compatible with some sort of free software. You can use AbiWord or Generic or whatever, GNOME Office, whatever you want to use, Calligra. So you sort of know about those conversion issues. You can also go with the web stuff. You can use Office 365, you can use Microsoft's web products, you can use Google's, Google Docs, that sort of thing. I don't think that there's anything specific that we'll be doing on Touch to support Microsoft documents, if you will. That said, you can certainly make and utilize the tools that you would expect to be able to utilize on the web and whatever applications that people want to write to do the same thing. Personally, I'm not a huge spreadsheet editor on my phone kind of guy, so
right.
That's not a use case for me. But
I'm sure you do get emailed the odd document, and it would be good to be able to open those. Yes. At the moment, we don't have an app which can open all of those Office documents, whether they're Microsoft or LibreOffice on the device. We've got PDF Reader, and it would be great if someone, hint hint, could create a document viewer. That would be awesome. We don't currently have a working document viewer.
I agree. Viewing things.
Yeah.
Would totally be a use case. That would be all about.
People send you emails with documents attached. It would be good to be able to, read that email in Deco and then detach the attachment and send them off to the relevant application that can view them. That would be awesome. Right.
Okay, let's try and squeeze the last few in here. Akiva asks about UI theming for the core apps, and he mentions that it seems sort of experimental. He mentions the Sudoku app as being an example. So he says, is there an eventual plan to have a formal coding style or standard to make sure that all core apps are themable?
It's not a current plan. It's a topic for discussion. The thing about core apps is they've evolved over time, and they were all created at different pace, and they all had different designers designing them. Sudoku, for example, was created by one developer and has had little design input from the Canonical design team, although the developer has had direct design input from Mark Shuttleworth on Google+. So that's one unique piece of input that the core app developers have had. But most of the other apps have had design input from Canonical. It would be a good idea, yes, for us to unify those and have a common set of standards. And I think that's a great discussion topic for the next online summit. I would love to see us talk about that. And if you have any suggestions, I'd be willing to listen to them. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we sort of need to think of. I'm thinking of the HIG.
Yeah, well,
some interface guidelines and some standards.
We
guess we do have some of that.
Yeah, the design team do have someone who is doing design documentation for them, amongst other things. Yeah, the rest of it, the coding style, theming standards, no, we don't have that all fully documented yet.
Okay, let's try and get through the last things. Oh, so Akiva also asks, can one of us play a song for Jono at the end of the video?
A song for Jono?
Yes. It's interesting.
Stallman singing the free software song.
There you go. I like that idea. I was thinking of something metal, but that's so much better. What other questions do we have, real quick? Chloe Wolfie Girl asks about talks on Ubuntu Touch. Dope, do you want to talk about that?
It's one of those. I'll give the brief answer. There are a lot of apps which people have on wish lists that they'd love to see, and one group of applications that a lot of people would like to see is chat applications. And within chat applications, a lot of people would like to see secure chat applications. And I would welcome community contributions, or if someone would like to develop such an application, that would be awesome. I would very much welcome that. I'd love to help testing and try and find people to help out with that. If you're interested in something like that, whether it's Jabber, Tox, Tor Chat, or anything of that kind of ilk, I'm super interested, and I'd love to help get that kind of thing kick-started.
Right, and I believe actually with Tox, I think that's how their official client for Windows and Linux and those sorts of things have actually come about. People have implemented different things, and then they've made one of them official and started there. So you could probably even, if you started up a client for Ubuntu Touch, you could probably get the official blessing at some point once it's up and running. So that would be really cool.
Awesome, and I think that would be something that we'd actually get a worthwhile result from. I know a lot of people keep telling me that WhatsApp is the big app that we're missing, but when a company that decides they don't want you to have and I'm not saying specifically about Ubuntu, but if they don't want you to develop a third-party app for their platform, and you try and circumvent that, that's really only wasting giving yourself putting yourself in a bad position. So I'd much rather we focused on apps which are friendly to us, like Tox, Tor Chat, and all these others, and Jabber, and get those developed and learn from that development process, than try and waste our time developing an app and then have lawyers come after us 3 months down the line. I think that's a giant waste of time.
Yeah, it's always much better to work with receptive upstreams than hostile ones. It's just a better experience for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. With that, I think we are totally out of time. So, Popey, thank you very much for hanging out. Thanks to all of you guys. Thanks for your questions. I had a lot of fun. And as usual, you can find us right here on Ubuntu On Air every week at this time. Chloe Wolfie Girl, I'm sorry we can't extend the hour, but you can find us next week, and you can certainly watch everything you've just seen. Will be uploaded on YouTube and will be available shortly for you to review at your leisure. All right, with that, so long, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.